Our next speaker is somebody who really needs no introduction, but he was invited here not just because of his extraordinary record representing and serving as our mayor. The real reason that the next speaker was invited was because he gets it. Because part of what he has said to all of us on sustainability issues, on environmental issues, and on poverty is to think bigger and bolder and to understand that if we go the way we're going, then we're not going to get very far, that he has asked all of us to raise the bar on these issues. I am so proud that he would take time out of his busy schedule to talk to us about his vision and his view of what we can do on this crisis and to elevate our city. Please give a warm welcome to our mayor, Michael Bloomberg.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Way to go. Just wanted to make sure everyone was there. Thank you for having me. Lee, wherever you are, Esther, well represented in the Columbia community. I cannot tell you that I ever got a degree from Columbia. I don't think if I had applied, they would have taken me, as a matter of fact. But my girlfriend does have a master's from Columbia, 2 of them. My sister has a master's from Columbia. I've given a lot of money to the second best school of public health in the country, Columbia's. I happen to be affiliated with Johns Hopkins, for those of you that don't know. They have a small school of public health that I'm very proud of. Mr. President, thank you. But most importantly, Scott, thank you for those kind words. But I just wanted to say a little bit to everyone here. We also have Liz Kruger here. Liz, where are you? Our state senator, representative. Well, I do respect Liz's right to be wrong, and she is whenever she disagrees with me. Nevertheless, she is also one of those people that I think Scott would say gets it, and she really does understand what we have to do to make this world better. But I just wanted to say something nice about Scott Stringer. I don't know how many of you know what borough presidents do in this city. One of their jobs is to be a cheerleader for their borough, to get people to come there and make sure that the little small cultural institutions in the boroughs outside of Manhattan get some publicity and are patronized, and there's a little bit of discretionary funding they fight for. Scott Stringer has a different issue because Manhattan, everybody knows Manhattan. And around the world, when people think of New York City, I think it's fair to say they generally think that Manhattan is it. They don't understand that an awful lot more people live in the other 4 boroughs and that there are more cultural institutions in the other 4 boroughs than there are in New York City, and more business and more housing and that sort of thing. But Manhattan is what gets the public eye. So being a cheerleader for Manhattan, Scott Stringer doesn't have to do that. It's done already. But Scott has taken on some of the bigger issues, and he's really trying to make this city better and make this world better. And I was thinking while he was talking that I don't think any other borough president has ever thought of the job that way and has ever tried to something as ambitious as conferences like this. And it's not just this. Scott Stringer is trying to address the major issues that the city can influence in this world. And I just personally wanted to say thank you. You really are doing a great job. Now, politics and food happen to be 2 of my favorite subjects. Yours too, Scott, and that's clear from your copies, the copy I read of Go Green East Harlem. It is an absolutely brilliant book, I'm sure available on Amazon. And Scott would like to urge you to put it under the Hanukkah menorah, or under your Christmas tree, or by your Kwanzaa candles. It would make a great gift. And while you're doing that, Bloomberg by Bloomberg, which is number 286,000th on the Amazon list, would be another ideal gift for all of us. I don't know what Scott's done with the royalties from his book. I have given the royalties from mine to the Committee to Protect Journalists, although most days when I read the paper, I wonder why I did that. Nevertheless, Scott, thank you for putting together this conference. I think it puts a spotlight on the paradox that a wonderful land of plenty and poor, a land of plenty, poor nutrition really is a very big problem. one with many causes and one with many disturbing consequences for the well-being of our nation and for this city. Protecting the health of New Yorkers is one I've always thought of the city government's most important responsibilities. It's one that, like public safety and education, we don't compromise on. As a matter of fact, I've always thought that if I died today, I would like the public to focus on one number, and that is that in the last 7 years, New York City's life expectancy has grown to be greater than the country as a whole. And if that isn't the purpose of government, I don't know what is. I will say I get emails every once in a while from people that don't view it that way. One sent me a very nasty email yesterday. He'd heard about us working on trying to get food manufacturers to put less salt in their foods, since hypertension actually kills more people than smoking. And he was going on and on about what was next, and he made some references to banning desserts, which I have no intention of doing. Banning meat in restaurants, since I'm a big steak eater, you can rest assured that we're not that. Anyways, we are going to continue our agenda to make New York City and America and the world a healthier place. We are blessed in this city to have a commissioner of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, a guy named Tom Frieden, who really is the genius behind all of our public health initiatives. When I needed a commissioner for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, I called the guy who was running the Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins and said who would be the best in the world. And Al Summer, who was the dean then, since retired, he said, well, there's one guy, but you can't get him. And I said, why? He said, well, he is in India trying to cure tuberculosis. Turns out he had worked for New York City trying to cure tuberculosis earlier. And I said, what do you mean I can't get him? Give me his phone number. Well, needless to say, a month later he started. The deal I made with Al is that he would come here if I would take the political heat and support initiatives to really make a difference in people's lives. And we started with smoking. Smoking kills more people than AIDS and tuberculosis and cancer and a few other things put together. This century, 1 billion people will die from smoking in this world. And the public doesn't seem to care. We don't do anything about it. Anyways, in New York, we copied California, which had banned smoking in all restaurants and bars before we did, but nobody really paid attention to it. We did it here, a little bit controversial. If any of you want a character-building experience, I would recommend closing 6 firehouses, raising property taxes, and put a smoking ban in all in the same year, and then try to do a parade by a bunch of bars on Staten Island. If you can do that afterwards, you can do anything for the rest of your life. Just trust me. Anyways, one of the things when we were working on banning smoking, somebody said, I don't know who and why they came up with this, they said, if we pass this, nobody from Italy and Ireland would ever come here on a vacation ever again. Why they picked those 2 countries, I don't know. But 6 months later, those were the first 2 countries in Europe to completely ban smoking, and followed by Germany and France and parts of Italy and most of Spain and Ireland. I mean, it is caught on in Western Europe. It is really true that in almost every bar, in almost every restaurant, they follow the law and people aren't smoking. And now what we've got to do is we've got to work on those 5 countries where half the smokers in the world still are, where the tobacco companies are focusing on the poor and uneducated because they are the most susceptible to falling into this trap of addiction. And that is Russia, where life expectancy is going down, in China, in India, in Bangladesh, and in Indonesia. And I'm happy to say that we've actually started to make some progress in some of these countries. There's a few cities in Africa that have understood this is a health scourge and have started to work on that. Mexico City, I'm happy to say, has already gone smoke-free. So you can make some of these things, you can address some of these issues, and it's all really because of New York City. If we do it here in New York City, the presence that we have in the media around the world, the focus of the world that no matter what they tell you about other cities around the world, New York still is the city that people look to for so many trends, whether it is in fashion or with technology. We are a technology center. People don't think of us that way, but we really are. Media center, obviously. Financial center, still. There's still going to be a business. Don't worry about that. If you're thinking of going into that industry, you'll have a good job down the road. But we can do some things. And what we've got to do is keep focusing on these things. Tom Frieden took on the trans fat battle. I took the heat politically, but it was all his genius. And actually, all the packaged food manufacturers around this country caved almost overnight and took trans fats out of their foods. And then all of the restaurants who couldn't possibly survive using trans fats overnight found something else to do. And they really are doing that. We've taken on the battle of listing calories on the boards in the fast food restaurants. We lost the first court battle. We came back. The judge gave us a roadmap on how to change the law so that he would approve it. We did that. And even before we got the law passed, a number of big chains started to put up calories on the boards where they list the price. So you'd find out that you could have an 800-calorie cup of coffee at Starbucks. But the truth of the matter is Starbucks also sells 100-calorie coffees, and they probably make just as much money on that, and people are changing what they're doing. So you can make a difference if you really work at all of these things. And the next thing, as I said, we're taking on is this salt that goes into too many of our packaged foods. It turns out, for those of you that put salt on your steak or on your salad, I've asked Tom this because I'm addicted to doing that, it's okay. It turns out that most of the salt that you consume is in the packaged foods before you get it. And if, as they've done in Europe, particularly in England, if you start reducing the amount of salt in those foods, people's palates slowly change. And you really do reduce hypertension, and that shows up at the hospitals as to who shows up with a stroke or heart attacks and that sort of thing. So you can do things. We have 300,000 fewer smokers in New York City. The smoking rate for teenagers in New York City has gone down 52% in the last 3 years. It makes a big difference. Anyways, that's on what you should not eat, and for the record, I still eat Cheez-Its. You've got to be addicted to some things. Coffee and Cheez-Its. Hey, what's wrong with that, you know? Anyways, we're not stopping. Sound food is a priority for us, a top priority, and most of our city agencies are helping us, as a matter of fact, with our food policy, and that includes the Departments of Health, Education, and City Planning, our Human Resources Administration, headed by Commissioner Robert Doar, who's here today, and also our Center for Economic Opportunity, which works with HRA and our Workforce One centers to replace the dependency of welfare with the dignity and self-sufficiency of work. What we're trying to do is to get people to eat healthier, and we're trying to get new jobs in food processing. We've actually made some big progress in helping to bring Hunts Point in the South Bronx as an economic engine and to employing a lot more people. One of the most important steps we've taken is to orchestrate all of their work with a city food policy coordinator. It's a position we established 2 years ago in cooperation with the Speaker of the City Council, Christine Quinn, and that post is ably filled actually by Ben Thomasis, who is also with us today here. And just tell you, as a result, our city has become a national leader in creating effective food policies with three main goals: making food provided and served by city agencies healthier, increasing accessibility to healthy foods, especially in low-income neighborhoods, and providing food security so New Yorkers don't have to choose between putting food on the table and paying rent, utility bills, or other essentials. And I just wanted to say a few words about each, starting with the first, about what city agencies are doing with the food that they provide. You probably don't think of New York City as a restaurant, or the government as a restaurant, but we really do believe in leading by example, so we never do anything, we never ask anybody to do anything we don't do ourselves. And the fact is that the city agencies and the contractors that we hire, including our senior centers, hospitals, jails, daycare centers, and others, New York City serves 225 million meals a year. The government serves that. That's not our restaurants. That's what city agencies do. Our public schools alone serve more meals each day than any other organization in the United States except for one, and that's the Department of Defense. And over the past 7 years, we've tried to really change the kind of food that we serve. School nutrition is a terribly important thing. How kids learn to eat is how they will eat when they are adults. And when you see children who are obese, the odds are that as an adult they will stay obese and they will have problems with diabetes and a whole host of other diseases. So last September we became the first major city in the nation to adopt a high nutrition standard for all the foods that the city and its agencies buy and serve. And under these standards, deep-fried foods are out, fruits and vegetables are in. Less salt, more fiber, fewer calories. We think by serving healthier meals, we're helping to set an example to New Yorkers that they will carry for the rest of their lives. The great challenge we have now is we changed what we serve, but now we've got to get people to eat it. And that's not so easy for kids who can walk out of the school and go down the corner and get something that may taste great but is just not good for them. But the reality is that even with the city's big role in food service, New Yorkers still buy more than 90% of the food they eat in grocery stores and restaurants, and that's why our second policy goal, greater access to healthy foods, is just as vital as making sure that the foods that we serve are good. Unfortunately, access to good quality food is seriously deficient, especially in low-income communities. And the results really are very troubling. For example, well over a quarter of the residents of Harlem, Central Brooklyn, and the South Bronx are obese. Let me just repeat that again. 1/4 of the residents of those neighborhoods are obese. This is not a small problem. Obesity, as a matter of fact, is the only public health issue in America that is getting worse. And most people, most organizations, most governments are not trying to do anything about it. There are lots of factors that contribute to the fact is fast food is tasty and cheap, and the scarcity of healthy food choices plays a role. And the result is a greatly increased risk of heart disease, the number one killer in our city. If you go into a corner bodega in a lot of parts of the city, you cannot buy diet sodas. Kids drink an enormous amount of soda. And if they could drink diet soda rather than regular soda with lots of sugar, it would go a long ways, just that alone, to improving their battle with their waistlines. You cannot get fruits and vegetables in a lot of bodegas in this city, fresh fruits and vegetables. Why? Because it's difficult for the owner of the store to keep fresh fruits and vegetables in stock, and if you don't buy them, then they spoil, and it's not economic, perhaps. So we're trying to do something about that. Fighting diabetes has just got to turn out to be society's next big thing after smoking. We're also trying to improve access to these stores, making sure that the bodegas stock other than regular milk. Most of them do not stock low-fat or 2% milk. That would make a big difference also in a lot of people's diet. There's a woman, Laurie Tisch, and she started something, the Laurie Tisch Illumination Fund, which has increased the number of green cart street vendors selling fresh fruits and vegetables in low-income communities. It's not made any sense to do that for a lot of people, but thanks to her generosity, we've been able to get more licenses for vendors and subsidize them going into these communities. And with the support of the City Council, we persuaded green markets around the city to accept food stamps, and that's a first. In New York City, you have to work for food stamps unless you have a serious disability and can show that you cannot work. But we want you to be able to take those food stamps, and we've done a good job at getting food stamps into the hands of people who do need them, but we want to make sure that they can use them intelligently. And we're offering a $2 Health Bucks coupon for every $5 in food stamps spent at green markets. So if you have food stamps and you go to green markets, you can really get some leverage with your food stamps. And we've actually drawn crowds of people out, we think, to buy farm-fresh products, and the more that we can do that, the better off the city will be. We're also exploring tools to spur development of supermarkets, which offer wider and better food choices in high-needs areas, and that may include city zoning and financial incentives. and possibly even the use of city-owned land. And third and finally, let me just address for a second how we're ensuring food security in our city during these harsh economic times. We recognize that many New Yorkers are finding it harder and harder to stretch their food dollars far enough, and so we're doing everything we can administratively to making it easier for New Yorkers to get the food assistance that they qualify for, while also aggressively protecting the integrity of the food stamp program to make sure that help goes to the people who really need it. In recent summers, we've extended the Meals for Kids program in public schools to include other city facilities such as libraries and parks and pools. And as you may have read earlier this week, as part of a response to the economic downturn, we're expanding a program of in-class free breakfast in many of the public schools. We're also streamlining the process for food stamp applications for up to 40,000 seniors who may be eligible for them. And we're also taking steps to ensure that emergency food stamp programs are well-stocked in the winter months ahead. And along with the City Council, we've recently committed an extra $1.3 million to frozen foods for such programs. And as many of you know, the Daily News, working with City Harvest, begins its annual Readers' Care to Feed the Hungry food drive tomorrow. The Daily News really has been a great corporate citizen and a leader in trying to help. And this year, in addition to encouraging New Yorkers to organize food drives and drop off non-perishable goods at firehouses and police stations, I'm also sending a letter to food processors urging them to make bulk donations that will go directly to food pantries and soup kitchens. So even in these difficult economic times, New Yorkers, on average, as I said before, are living longer. I'm happy to say they are also living healthier and in many ways better than the rest of our fellow citizens. That's not good. Hopefully the rest of the country will challenge us. We want them to be chasing us, but we don't want us to be chasing them. And so we're going to keep working no matter how tough it gets in this city. If we have to make sacrifices in this city to help those who need us, we are not going to walk away from our responsibility. I don't care what the politics of it are. We're not going to walk away from our obligation to invest in the future. That was a mistake that was made back in the 70s in this city. Most of you are too young or weren't living here at the time, but this city walked away from safe, clean streets. It walked away from better cultural institutions and clean, exciting parks. It walked away from an educational system that educates 1.1 million kids every day. We're not going to do that. Whatever the cost is, we're going to keep investing and keep doing what's right, because we will one of these days, I don't know when, but we will come out of this economic downturn, and we have to make sure that history shows we did the kinds of things that are necessary to enjoy the good days when they come. And I would just urge all of you to do everything you can to help us in our objective of improving people's lives, getting them to take care of themselves and eat healthier. And there's an old Arab proverb that states, "Those who have health have hope, and those who have hope have everything." And I think that really does describe what we're trying to do, give people a hope that they have the opportunity of dignity of the job, ability to practice their religion and say what they want to say and be safe on their streets, getting good health care when they need it, but most importantly, preventing them from getting disease in the first place. We've come a long ways in this city. We've given New Yorkers, I think, more health and hope than they've had in a long time. Food policy has been playing a big part in that. And with your continued help, I think the best days for this city, days of health and hope for all, are still to come. For those of you who are here for an education, I can only urge you, when you finish that, stay here for your careers. We need taxpayers. And we think that this is the place that really can lead the world, and we'd love to have you be part of that.